Hello, and welcome to TEDxPunnawithi. The authorities did not understand that Sukhumvit is part of Bangkok. Everybody knows, so they gave it another name, Punjabi or something like that. But we call it TEDxPunnawithi. This session, ladies and gentlemen, is about identity and trust, the new IT. And to start, I want to show you some pictures. The question is, where are the pictures? Can we trust technology? Like, what does it mean to trust technology? Does it mean that we trust that actually something will come up? That whenever it will be coming up, it is actually what we sent? I could see of some things coming up which would be very embarrassing, so I hope that they are not changing the file on my computer back there. Is it that we trust it doesn't get intercepted? But I would like to ask you to please bring up the first slide. Great. So I'm showing you a few pictures now. And this one was taken last year. Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, asked me to be her digital advisor. And she clearly is pimping my book, which, by the way, is also here in Thai translation. It was a bestseller earlier this year called Data for the People. The idea is that in the book I'm talking about the rights we should have about the data we create. What I do with companies, and Kungan in the next session will talk about this, digital transformation is, well, what does it mean to have people for the data? But I just want to show you a few pictures. I clearly remember this event with Barack Obama, where we talked about what did he, under the very good previous government, very interested in digital. I think social media got Obama elected, essentially. What do we need to do? And he hired DJ Patil as his chief data officer, and Megan Smith, out of Google, as his chief technology officer. Those were the days. This one was on my birthday 3 years ago. I was invited to Moscow, and Vladimir Putin wanted to learn about AI and big data. This one was Christmas Eve 2004 at Shanghai Jiao Tong University, where Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, actually one of the 20 founders of Alibaba, where he and I discussed the future of e-commerce. And I looked at the transcript the other day, and it was interesting. Nowhere in 2004 did we discuss mobile. This one was maybe 6-7 years ago in Brazil. It was a conference where I shared the green room with Bill Clinton. And my suit was so bad that Bill Clinton's tailor actually offered to make me a new suit for free. And then I sat down in the car in San Francisco with my keys, and man, I heard catch. And there was a hole in my suit, luckily I was wearing black underwear, as I was giving my talk on a stage. And then I wrote to that tailor and said, I'm sorry, and he said, oh, we'll send you another pair of pants. Same price. So now I have 2 pairs of pants, one fixed. So that was the meeting with him. And this one here is, does anybody know who the other gentleman is? Not my teddy bear? Any idea? Jeff Bezos. Clearly is in my bedroom because I know the books on the bookshelf. And it's clearly my teddy bear. But I have no idea how actually Jeff Bezos, got into my bedroom. I now have a question for you before I tell you what's happening in my session. Of these past pictures, which of them, if any, do you think is fake? And why? So people said Obama. Everybody agrees Obama is fake? Any other opinions? They're all fake. Okay, I like that one. Any other ideas? Teddy bear. I cannot tell you how many TV stations have shown at my home in San Francisco and asked to come to my bedroom to see my teddy bear, I think. So, how do we know? Are all of them fake? Well, I won't tell you right now. One suggestion is, of course, you can Google it. For example, if you Google Weigend and Putin, and the picture comes up, then maybe the chances are higher that it's not fake. Otherwise, it's a lot of work to fake Google's links. There are link farms for everything. But the question for us in this session is a question which is very close to my heart. The question of who are we and how many? And the question about who can we trust? What can we trust? What does trust mean? So I'm very fortunate that I have a few friends who are helping me out with this session. Let me quickly walk you through what's happening. Lim Hui-jie came up from Singapore and is talking about, will blockchain change the world? And I told him that he needs to start with a problem, with a personal experience, and at the end, he needs to the edge of the stage and say, together, we can make a difference. That makes a good TED Talk. Then we have a student of Suki Kim who spoke at the main TED in 2015, named Kim Kim. He's going to come to us via a video link from an undisclosed location, and I have to ask you to not take pictures of the discussion with Kim Kim. So that is the condition under which he appears. We will not post the video, you cannot take pictures, but he will talk about some of the things in a country where things are different from the way they are here. Maybe not as different as we think. Then we have Kun Ek, Superson, who I met last year at the main TED, where he talked about deep fakes. And he only agreed to be here to have a chat with me. So we'll bring 2 chairs up, and then we have a 10-minute conversation. That talk he gave really changed my outlook on what I can trust. Because if you see people, deep fakes in a video, really behave just like, in person, then you wonder, what can we trust? Then we have a friend of mine from Stanford, Albert Chon, talk about decentralized finance and ML. ML does not mean machine learning as it normally does to people who did computer science at Stanford. It means money laundering. But I don't want to cut the thunder there. Then we have Sean Lee, came up from Singapore to kick off the panel, and we have about 15-20 minutes where we reflect on what we learned about IT, identity and trust. On that note, I would like to ask Mr. Lim Hui-jie to come up and talk to us about whether blockchain will change the world. Thank you. It's always awkward, shouldn't hug the person or not, but she can. But from now on, we do hugs, okay? Great.
Perfect. So, a very good morning to everyone. I'm Lim from Singapore, and I run a technology group called VisionGroup. And the topic I'm going to talk about today is about blockchain. And will blockchain change the world? There's going to be three things that I'll be focusing on, primarily in the areas of trust, security, and control. So let's cover the first topic on trust. It's really interesting. No one trusts anyone anymore. And an interesting thing to think about is, do we trust a machine more, or do we trust a human more? And of course, we have to put that in context. Do I trust a chatbot to purchase a flight ticket for me to fly? Or a driverless car to take me from point A to point B without a driver? Or a surgical machinery equipment to operate on myself, or a robot to take care of my kid? Of course, that's contextual. But more and more so, we're moving into this area of trust, of robots versus machines, robots versus humans. So a study was done that 64% of people trust a robot more than their manager, and more people trust machines with financial information and privacy information they are providing. Something to think about. As we start to interact more and more with robots, chatbots, and machines, what will this lead us in the future? And importantly, of course, trust is just the start. Trust leads us to what's going to happen next, agreement that we're going to have between person A and B, or a group of people. In times in antiquity, we have trust through a verbal agreement, a nod, or gentleman's handshake. And we became more educated. We wrote written contracts, legal documents. But is that enough? Look at the number of law cases we have today, and the number of rich lawyers we have as well. I guess that's a reason that we still need to better improve. What will happen in the future on agreements? Technology, smart contracts, programmable contracts, maybe. And I lead to a topic that's a little bit closer to everyone's heart. Food and food safety. Every single day, we eat food. Do we really trust that food is really safe, or where it really came from is where it said it came from? If I order organic salad, is it really organic? Or if I drink a nice wine or whiskey, is it really from the region it's from? Blockchain is able to have that permanence and immutability of data, that provenance and tracking of where that food actually came from, where it's when, and where it'll be going to. Blockchain will be able to create trust in a less trustless environment, and agreements based on technology for the automation of trust. To me, at least, blockchain is to trust what the internet is to information. So this leads me to my next topic on security. We are in an era of data explosion. 90% of the world's data was created just in the last 3 years. We have about 2.5 quintillion bytes of data being created every single day. That's about a 1 with 18 zeros. This is now. Think about the next 3 years, the next 10 years, and the next 30 years. Humongous amount of information is being created. Yet, we are in a data jungle. Every single step we take, every turn and corner we take, is fraught with dangers, potential data breach, potential information leaks. There were a number of large-scale data breach information leaks in the last number of years. Facebook was just fined $5 billion. Based on each person they have, that's about $1.85 per user. British Airways had a fine of $230 million. That's about $485 per person for data that was being leaked. And more interestingly, more governments are looking into this space. The Singapore government has just set up a new agency called the GDO, the Government Data Office, for a single point where all data breach is able to be reported to the government. And what's interesting was that they did a study of about 336 out of 2,840 systems in the Singapore government across 94 agencies, and they found out that out of every 4, there are 3 agencies that is non-compliant towards the standards that they have set. 3 out of 4. They then came out with 5 key measures on what they're able to do to bring the standards up. And one of which is pretty interesting, on how is the government going to be able to protect data, not only during storage, but in the instance it's being extracted, that the data will be unusable. And that's what are some of the benefits of what blockchain is able to do, where it's able to encrypt, fragment, as well as distribute. So my third topic, it's really on control. The question to ask, is my data really mine? Do I really control the data that I have and the data that I create? And more so, this question is going to be more and more prevalent in the years to come. 90% of the respondents to the survey said that they would be very concerned if the company in which their data was stored sold it to another party. The question to ask really is, would you allow the companies that have your data sell that? Would you be comfortable with that? It's already happening every day, but were you comfortable with that? And the next question is then to ask is, what if these companies give you $50 a month, every month? Are you willing to do that? Not enough. So there's a price on that. Maybe 100, maybe 1,000. Everyone has a different price. What if the company masks your identity, selling your data, but masking your identity? Will you then allow these companies to sell your masked data at $50 or maybe $100 a month? So it is a real problem that we face in today's space. 81% of Americans feel like they have little control over the data they collect by companies. 79% are concerned with how their data is being used, and 59% have little understanding of how the data is really being utilized. So it comes the question on data: who, what, when, how, why. And every day, as more and more people start wearing smartwatches and more companies start collecting your data, they now know more about you than your wife knows about you, or your spouse knows about you, or even yourself know about yourself. With all the pictures that you take of all the food before you eat it, it most probably can give you recommendations of what would be the food that you'd be craving for before even dinner tonight. What's really interesting about blockchain is that it's able to bring forth better control and better access to the data that you hold. And if you choose to monetize that data, that's something that it allows you to do. the rate at which we are adopting technology and technology is accelerating is unprecedented. To give you an idea, say 25% of the population of US, it took them 35 years to adopt the telephone. Similarly, it took them about 15 years to adopt the personal computer. And you want to make a guess how long it took for Pokemon Go to be adopted? 19 days. 19 days. And more so the next few applications that will be rolled out in the future. It is the truth that technology will play a bigger and bigger part of our lives moving forward. And what's interesting is that blockchain as a new technology, and what is the impact that blockchain will have on us in the areas of trust, in a less trustless environment or society, in areas of security, in a very much more unsecured world, and the areas of control in lesser controllable times. So, will blockchain change the world? Maybe. If there's one thing to take away from the sharing, it really is. Blockchain is to trust what the internet is to information. I'm Lim from VisionGroup. See you in the future. Thank you very much.
We have an interesting experiment. If all goes well, we will have a screen here which is a direct connection to Kim Kim. Welcome, Kim Kim.
Hello.
What's your first name and what's your last name?
My first name is Kim. My last name is Kim.
Okay. So, how do I address you? Address you as Kim Kim or Mr. Kim or?
Mr. Kim Kim.
Mr. Kim Kim. Good. Mr. Kim Kim has some very interesting insights into a society which is very different from ours. We just learned in the last talk that data is an exponential technology, doubling every 1.5 years. Or in the words of Roger, 90% of the data has been created in the last few years. The situation in North Korea is different. If we look at a map from outer space, you see one dark spot. That is North Korea. However, we hear that North Korea is financing its state economy primarily by printing fake $100 bills. I'm not sure whether that's true. My first question to Mr. Kim Kim would be, what is the situation of fake, do they make fake bitcoins there or stuff like that?
Right. In North Korea, no one can make any fake bitcoins, but what North Korea can do and has done for the past 2-3 years is, first of all, hack many cryptocurrency exchanges and steal crypto and transfer them to their own accounts. And crypto is primarily a freedom-enabling technology, as was previously mentioned in the last talk, can maybe change the world. But this freedom-enabling technology can be used in malicious ways, and when things do go wrong, there is no recourse. So this past year, the DPRK has stolen around $800 million of funds from various exchanges, mainly in South Korea, and transferred Bitcoin and many other cryptocurrencies to their own accounts.
I've heard that it's not only that they steal money from crypto exchanges, but it's also that in Europe, I think we had this WannaCry. I'm not sure whether you had this in Thailand, that they also have malicious software. Is there any truth to it? I mean, don't say more than you can say. And by the way, again, I remind you, no pictures in this session, okay?
Yes. In fact, my country does something called crypto jacking, where oftentimes they'll have you download something as innocuous as an Adobe Flash update, which many people do download because they want to access some kind of video or something. And this ends up actually being a cryptocurrency miner on the computer. So they install a cryptocurrency miner on the computer unknowingly, which mines various cryptocurrencies like Monero for the DPRK. And that's one major way that the DPRK gets crypto. They hack other people's computers through malware. They hack unsecured servers on the internet and install this malware, which mine cryptocurrency and fund the DPRK's nuclear program, as well as various other sanction avoiding activities.
What dangers do you think you are in by talking about these issues here, even if nobody is taking pictures?
I think that the DPRK can still hurt my family. And I guess the biggest secret about the North Korean government and crypto is that...
I'm sorry, I guess the connection got intercepted. So let's thank Mr. Kim for his insights, and a round of applause, even if he is no longer with us here. I hope nothing bad happened to him. And move on. Kunek, where are you? And where are the two chairs for the two of us? Where are the two chairs for the two of us? Hello. All right. Thank you, Kuntan. Great. So we can get rid of the screen behind us. Yes, thank you. Hello.
Hi, how are you? Oh, that's a bit loud.
So we met 1.5 years ago when Kunek gave a wonderful, wonderful talk at the main TED on deep fakes. And my idea of showing you some stuff which is real and some stuff which is fake, I just simply stole from your talk. I hope you didn't mind. My question for you in the 10 minutes or so we'll have for our chat is, what has changed in your mind in the last 1.5 years since you gave the TED talk?
I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with the work. So it's the one that create a synthetic video of Obama given only audio. And so once that's released, so when I got a lot of contact, one of them is from DARPA, which is defense agency from the US. They're not trying to jail me or anything. They just want to have like an advisor for this kind of time. They don't want any surprise in terms of technology, like technological surprise, and they want to be aware of all this possible new technology. And so there's a lot of discussion going on. What about about the impact and social impact of this kind of thing? And at the beginning, it was very scary. But currently, about 2 years from when I gave the talk, I think things sort of settle down, and it becomes. I feel like when it first came out, it's like when you first have sort of Photoshop and people are like so scary, everyone's so paranoid about, everything can be, photo can be edited, so can we trust anything now? And I think we have the same kind of period in 2017 when this first came out. But I think now it's sort of a bit settled down, but, we researchers are still working on, we need these sort of countermeasures in place so that it's not too easy for anyone to just misuse.
So is it like an arms race?
It is. It is around.
There are.
It is.
I first learned it about actually imitating voice, and then there was a tool. So Adobe has a tool where you can make anybody's voice sound like my voice or Connect's voice. And then, guess what? They came out with another tool that helped people find out when people were synthesizing voice to be that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think it's an arm race that we can never win or never lose. It's sort of like...
it keeps computer scientists in business.
Yeah. Yeah, so the generation will keep getting more realistic, but we also have a better tools based on also machine learning to detect those kind of thing. But eventually, I don't think you will not win or lose. It just you just keep competing.
Do you have experiences where you actually realize that you don't know who is on the other side?
I don't think we're at that point yet. So a lot of things that you've seen right now is still a bit research, but it doesn't mean that that's not going to be the case maybe 5 years down the road. But I think for now, you can sort of, once you look at it long enough, you can sort of tell that it's not true. But maybe 3-4 years from now, it's going to be really hard, and it can be, video can be synthesized in real time. So that's when things get interesting.
So I don't know whether any of you has been on a dating site like Tinder, Grindr, but I think I would predict that in the next year or two, there'll be a major scandal of somebody being on one of these sites where they are talking to somebody who is really not who they are. They say they are, but they are really up to getting that person to say things, to reveal things, which makes them lose their job or their military post or whatever you can lose.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine that kind of story will eventually happen once or twice down the road. But I mean, the one time that it happened, it will make into the news. But I think after that, things might change. The deepfake, the one that swapped the face of celebrity into this nude video, happened once, and then people sort of realized. A lot of people try to ban, social websites try to ban all these things, and it just went away.
It went away.
Or from the news maybe, but so it's really hard to do that, and then you got people make it harder to share that. People make it harder to distribute that content, and it also helps prevent the number of occurrences that it.
Really. So I actually had hoped that Kun Ek, who moved back to Thailand and is teaching in Rayon, where actually it's a research university, fully funded for all the grad students they accept, I had hoped you would share with us some really practical tips how we can all create deep fakes.
You want to create or you want to detect? So deepfake, the one that maybe I can talk about the general deepfake first. So historically, it predates our work. It's the one where they use neural network to swap faces of celebrities onto someone else's video. And then that's the original term for deepfake. And our work was try to synthesize video from audio, which is we're not doing face swapping. But I think nowadays, deepfake refers to all the synthetic medias, including videos, photos, and sometimes audio. And so the current technology, people release these public tools that you can face swap someone, and could also generate a video of yourself giving enough training data of you. Say if you have a lot of videos of you, then you can sort of generate yourself moving and talking too. And that's the generation side.
So I think it's pretty amazing. I had a house in Shanghai for 17 years, from the days when I was working with Jack Ma until last year. And I'm actually relatively happy, given what I see in Hong Kong, that, I'm out of China. But it's amazing how much every corner of the country where there are people is basically measured. And not only who you are, but also how you are feeling. So emotion recognition is pretty crazy, that the micro movements, your muscles, where consciousness, you try to do that Pan Am smile, or TG smile, but then you really think, what an asshole. You can pick out by computer those subtle mismatches. Yeah. So I would argue that the computers actually are better than we are, because our attention is not always fully there, but a computer doesn't get distracted.
Also, there's one recent news article, and this kind of thing could also cause discrimination as well. So someone released an AI tool to detect from photo whether you're gay or straight, and that not everyone sort of wants that, and it can also cause discrimination. Maybe you're not actually gay, but then it got detected as straight. And AI can do a lot of that kind of thing, like emotion detection or even sexual orientation detection, which could, cause a lot of discrimination.
Yeah. So I think we did not synchronize about this article. I think that article is one of the worst articles ever written. One of the conclusions it comes to is that 10%, that it's 90% accurate. And all I can say is, what the fuck? Or what the duck, as they say in Singapore. Because if you assume then 10% of the world's population are gay, then if you say everybody's straight, you're 90% accurate. Where's my Nobel Prize? So I think it is not only a questionable task to try to do this from an image, but it's also from the metric to evaluate this. It is just a terrible paper. But we didn't talk about this. I don't know whether you know the authors, but just by looking at the paper, I'm embarrassed that papers like that get published, not because of the subject matter, but because of the methodology. Now, if anybody gives me their Facebook, or if anybody looks at my Facebook, they know what kind of people I like. So I would argue that the thing about doing it from the picture is pretty lame. However, it is not that difficult. And one thing I learned, many people will actually tell you if you ask them. So if you want to find a boyfriend, then the best is to tell the world what kind of guy you're interested in, and maybe your friends will help you.
Not sure that will always the case in Thailand. There are people who are closeted.
Yeah.
And stuff.
I hope we'll move into a world where, with this identity, with trust, we move into a world where that is possible. Although I read in the Bangkok Post that two guys who were kissing in Parliament to make a point a couple of days ago, that they were in trouble. So no kissing on the stage here. All right. I think we have time for one more point. And I would like to know anything else you would like to say about trust?
So maybe one of them is we also try to think about what will happen in the future, as in with this technology really going to cause a lot of problems, and one of the things we have to think about is whether it's going to be likely to get abused. And I think one point that we usually raise is that it's much easier to write a fake text and use out of context photos. For if you're a bad guy and you want to fool someone, and it's much easier, and if it's cheaper, it could be more effective to just use fake text, and real photos out of context, as opposed to video where there exists maybe tools that can objectively verify or dispute.
So let me actually ask the audience here. The text you all read about solving the Rubik's, did any of you notice that that was a random text generator that created that? I mean, it didn't make sense, of course, but did you actually consider that it would be synthetic? Or did you just think, the person had a problem with their English or had a glass of wine too many to drink? Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things that makes it super scary is because of the assumption that we all think that other people would get fooled by videos, but that's no longer true. And I think that's one of the key things. If no one is actually believing video at first sight anymore, this thing, the impact or the scariness of this thing could go down by a lot. Once everyone's sort of aware.
But then, Kunek, what can we trust?
It's harder. It's hard. What can you trust is, you're going to have more limited number of things that you can be trust. But my opinion is that society won't break down. I don't think society would break down because this thing happens for a lot of time. There will be there's potential threat for technology. Enough good people will come up with countermeasures, this kind of thing. I think I'm optimistic, and this thing always happens. Like climate change. For example, enough people will try to do something. Will try to put enough safeguards for this kind of thing. So there will be, few occurrences will totally happen. There will be someone who misused the technology. It will be made into the news, but the number won't be that high. That's my belief.
So that's when we should step, as from your TED Talk to the edge and say, together we can make the world a better place. And I refrained from doing a farce of a TED Talk. Now, I think, why don't we, do you want to stay up here, or do you want to?
No.
You're okay.
I'll just
then be back in a couple.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank Kunek here, and we'll see you in the panel in a moment. And we go now to my friend Albert Chon, who graduated from Stanford, and I would like to have him up on the video. Albert, are you there? Oh. Yes. This is Albert Chon, and Albert is going to talk to us about distributed finance, DeFi.
Yep. So first, I'll share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
We see you. And how are you doing while they are trying to figure out how to do the screen share?
Okay. I sent my slides link over, but it's fine. I can just present them. So
give them a moment. I'll introduce Albert. So Albert is Korean American, and he went to Stanford, graduated this year, and has a company called Injective Protocol. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Great. And I'm not supposed to say things which I'm not supposed to say. Like I'm not supposed to say all that much because we are worried about, lawsuits if we say what they really do, but is in the crypto space. And that man actually knows how to code. And the amazing things about the crypto space is if you make mistakes, somebody will exploit that mistake. And Albert simply says, it might as well be him. But now you're on the big screen. We still don't have your slides, so I think we should just give up on the slides and listen to Albert Chon.
Sure. Yeah, so as was talked about earlier today, can blockchain change the world? And I think DeFi is one of those spaces where blockchain definitely can change the world. And I'll talk about some applications, what DeFi is, and just what that kind of looks like. So to compare it to like traditional finance, let's first talk about identity. So when I go to the bank today and let's say I send a wire transfer to Andreas, I'll first have to register with the bank. So provide complete KYC, know your customer, AML, so anti-money laundering documentation, so they know, I'm not a terrorist and I'm not trying to finance or just do something illegal. And let's say I send $25,000 to Andreas. This transaction will be flagged for being too large by the US government at least, and it will take several days to transfer. Whereas in the crypto world, identity is identified by a public key, private key pair. So what that is just a 40-digit long number, which represents your identity in the blockchain space. And with this, you can hold cryptocurrency on your own and send it to anyone you would like. So if I want to send Andreas $25,000 of crypto, I can do so in just 15 seconds without any KYC, any AML procedure, and the transaction will settle basically instantly. And that's kind of a big difference between traditional finance and DeFi. Now, what identity looks like, though, is very different besides this sense, in that what you do in the bank, the data is all owned by the bank. Whether I spend, money to my parents back home, or to Andreas, or how much money I have across my savings, investment, checking account, that's all owned by the bank, and it's not public, of course. You don't want to know how much you have in your bank being public. But whereas in the crypto world, all of this, at least on Ethereum, which is one of the biggest blockchains, or Bitcoin, is all public. You can see who is transacting with who, how much, what time, and basically every single interaction that you do is public. What is different, though, is that the identity of the public key is not associated with your name in the real world. And that has some important implications. So, as I said, how can DeFi change the world? One major application is remittances, or sending money. As I said, especially for international transfers, this process can take a very long time and be really expensive. But DeFi allows people to send money very seamlessly, instantly, and a reduction of friction has many beneficial applications to the world. But one of them is money laundering, or ML.
But let me just interrupt. First of all, I know you all know KFC. Do you know what KYC is?
Of course. It's know your customer policy.
Know your customer, okay. Then I think a big downside we would have if we did this, that the banks wouldn't make that much money anymore. So isn't that a terrible thing? That the banks, our veneered institutions, that if crypto comes along, what happens to the banks?
Yeah, I guess they can't make money off lending our money for us, and I guess people will miss out on the 0.03% interest rates that I'm getting at Chase Bank, for example, right now. But basically, what you do get is you get so much more control over your money, and
well, yeah. Albert has a mentor, Danny Yang, and I deeply respect Danny Yang. Danny has a company called Blockseer, and what they do is very smart, combining different data sources on figuring out who the person actually is, who is, let's say, ordering some stuff on the dark web. If you want good quality delivered of something, then you have a good ranking of the sellers on the dark web, and ultimately you need to give them an address where to send the stuff to. And one thing I learned from Albert is that if you live in a dorm, you make up a random name in your dorm, and then you know to watch out for that envelope with that random name you just made up, and you know actually that was for you. So they can't trace your name to it. But what about people like me who don't live in a dorm? Anyways, so I think it is very interesting business to try to still find out who is behind the transaction. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely, a lot of law enforcement is putting a lot of effort into this.
And I worry about the People's Republic of China, who is now offering or developing their own verified crypto exchange, which of course after we already have Ant Financial with Alipay, and we can pay people on WeChat, and they already know all the interactions, who pays whom, when again. Now, when you have crypto, the balance of power, the thing which made me write my book, not data against the people, but data by the people and of the people, data for the people, that I am not sure which way that balance of power is shifting. And I don't know whether that's the moment to step to the edge of the stage and to say, together, we can make the world a better place. So Albert, you'll stay on as we are now moving to the panel discussion. And I would like to invite, first of all, the chairs, and then also Sean Lee and Huajie and Kunek to join us here with Albert on top. Maybe Kunbang, you can actually, rather than having AE there, you can actually bring a picture of up, as you have a video feed up there on the right. And join us here. And the way we will start is that Sean, who I met many years ago when he was a dancer. So it's true. Not making it up. So I was in Singapore in 2004 or something like this, and I went to a dance performance called East Side Story, and there was this man dancing.
I'd like to quantify it's not a pole dance.
And we already introduced the other two. And we want to keep Albert on the screen, and please put Albert back. And you can have us on the other screen on the right. So please have a seat. So what we are thinking is that, Jean, you have been listening attentively last hour. I would like to know, what do you think? If you kick off the panel and to manage expectations, we have about 15 minutes. And what I want to explore is the question about identity and trust.
Okay. I think this whole conversation has been very thoughtful. It's been slightly gloomy, on the gloomy side, but it has also been a very prevalent issue about trust, identity. Back in the days, food has always been very natural. I mean, from the ground to the table. But Parmesan cheese, for example. I mean, how often do you really eat legitimate Parmesan cheese? And this has been an on-standing issue for the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And so now to culminate with identity being theft, identity being real and stolen off. I mean, it's finally brought us to a different level where not only from the very traditional basic to where we are right now in the digital world. Yeah, so I think also the positive side, like what you mentioned of dating.
So the point you made, you were a bit far away from the microphone, was food.
Yes.
That's just food.
Yes.
That's very true. How do we trust the food? How do we, if you were making beer, for example, how do we know that you as a beer maker are not taking the last shortcuts and putting really minor quality ingredients in there just to bring up a little bit more of your profit?
Which is a very good point. So recently in China, more than 30% of the alcohol is fake. More than 70% of the wine they drink is fake. And the magnitude of this problem is that they drink more than 30,000 bottles of alcohol.
You?
No, I mean China.
We get a head start last night, but I mean...
And that's 30,000 bottles of alcohol per hour. And there's a tremendous amount of alcohol that's
I love it. In the world, you mean?
China alone.
China?
Alone. And just China alone.
Wow. And what do you mean being fake? I mean, when I lived in China, there was a store outside, and they really had wine which had wonderful labels. And the labels looked just like, French wine.
Yes.
And was a good price. But, it didn't really taste like French wine. So that was obviously fake.
So to answer your question, from an undisclosed source, he used to work in a winery in China. So they literally has no grapes. Literally has no grapes. Everything is synthesized, everything is bottled, and there's a very pretty bottle out there and made in XXX country. But actually produced in China.
I love that. The question is there booze in there?
Yeah, there's sure a lot of alcohol, but how pure the alcohol is.
Okay.
Turpentine is an alcohol, right?
So that was interesting. Food safety.
Yes.
By the way, in the United States, I did a workshop at a company that when there are drugs expired, I mean in a pharmacy kind of, when they expire, then they send them back to one company on the East Coast, and they basically collect expired drugs. And what is absolutely crazy, and I'm talking about the United States of America, what's crazy is about 10% of the drugs that's been sent back to them because of expiration date are not what they say they are. 10%. So somebody in the supply chain, let's say you're a truck driver, and some dude comes up to you and says, "Hey, dude, I'll pay you $10,000 if you can swap that box out against, a box which just looks like the same, nobody will notice." And the poor truck driver, how much does he make? And very, very difficult to control actually pharma products. Blockchain is one of the things here, and I have a friend who is the chairman of the board of Roche, and they're actually actively trying to combat fraud on pharma and drugs. Kun Bank and I took a workshop at TEDx, at TED Summit it is called, in Edinburgh. That's when we met. And that workshop was entitled, How to Sell Fake Drugs. But I don't want to go into too many details here. The food safety is an important issue. Not cutting corners, or the numbers from China are shocking.
So, just to add on to that as well. But let's put the very innocent olive oil.
Olive oil.
Olive oil. So olive oil is supposed to be technically extra virgin olive oil, but I think close to 90% of it in the market is all synthesized. And the chances are on the table that you have 8 Italian food with olive oil, you probably eat it like less than 10% of your entire life. So the identity has always been there, but just masked as a different product.
Sorry, you were not coming through well.
No.
So we talk about olive oil now, from the
oil.
Mediterranean, which is, you press olives, you have a virgin olive oil and whatnot. And then what are you saying? That it's actually not olive oil. It's like in China, it is gutter oil, recycled gutter oil, right?
Not to the extreme, not to the extreme. But if you notice, if you go to any supermarket, the next time you shop for olive oil, look behind the bottle. If you see like the harvest date, then probably legitimately you are quite right. But if you don't even see that at all, chances are it's probably synthetic.
Okay, so from what we learn here is to always put the harvest date, preferably in the past, onto the back of the bottle. Last night I was at Ceylon, and I bought for a really good price a Prada bag. And then somebody said, that's a fake bag. And I was thinking to myself, if it was identical to the Prada bag, it just fell off the truck, how would I feel about it? I got a good deal. If the handle falls off on second use, maybe it was not that great. Now, what is at the next stall on Ceylon? They sell underwear. And so they had that really fancy piece of underwear. I don't want to go into details. But I was thinking now, if I buy that and I wear it today, will it make me feel differently if I think it's actually an original versus if I think it's a fake? So those are the questions about identity and trust. Hardware, software, underwear.
Yeah. So I think there's one interesting story. It's also related. Maybe identity and privacy is sort of goes hand in hand. And there's one question that I'm wondering, like why like the situation in the U.S. is so different from in China, where people are okay with government taking photos of you, and that could be used to create a virtual or fake identity of that person. And so I asked one of my Chinese friends, she said, it's one big reason is the culture, because when we leave, Chinese kids live with their parents, and the parents ask them all the time, where you go, where are you going to go? And they already lost all privacy in the family, and they're sort of used to that. Whereas in the U.S., it doesn't happen that often. Parents might not care that much about where you're going, just make sure you come home safe. And in Thailand, maybe it's in between, but it has a lot to do with the culture as well, whether or not you're okay with your privacy or identity being violated or shared. I think it has a lot to do with cultures.
There's an interesting story in my book about a Dutch woman who, as a class project, took a trip to Asia. And she really made everybody believe, based on what she tweeted and what she Facebooked, that she actually was in Asia. I wanted, in preparation for this talk, to actually get a screenshot of that. But it turns out, because one photo is her posing in front of a Buddha statue, which was done in Amsterdam. She never left Amsterdam. The whole thing, she never got out of her house. But the Thai government blocks that website because it's her posing in an apparently inappropriate way in front of a Buddha statue. So it is interesting how people can create identities by posting on Facebook. And for example, we were going to have a fifth member on this panel, Kun Man. And when we had dinner preparing, somebody who recommended him said, but he actually right now is hiking in France. So I do the mental arithmetic and said, what time should I call him so we can talk? And said, oh no, I'm in Bangkok. I just post pictures as if it was somewhere else. It just fools us.
Yeah.
What can we trust?
So it's actually really interesting, right? Because especially more and more so in today's world, a lot of people have this thing that we're looking to call digital personas. And you have your Facebook persona where you upload all your different photos, and that's one digital persona. You have your Instagram, that's a different persona. You have your real world life, you have your LinkedIn, you have maybe your author that you call yourself as a different name when you actually write in certain forums and of the likes. So many people today have multiple different digital personas. So which is a true reflection of identity at that point of time? What so-called is that specific relation that he has with all the other different relationships of multiple different digital personas that he's engaging with? I think that's more so a question that's upcoming, more and more importantly, moving forward as well.
If somebody has a story about, fake identities or about the multiple true identities, however you want to call it, I would suggest that you tweet it. And my Twitter handle is @ of course, my first initial, Weigend, so AWEIGEND. So if you tweet it with @ Weigend in it, then we'll see it, and perhaps at the end of the day, we can share a couple of stories which we learned from you in exchange. I wanted to comment on one thing which you said in your talk. And you asked the question about, how much would I need to get paid for my data? And how much would I need to get paid if my data was only shared in an anonymized way, in a masked way? And I think that, ladies and gentlemen, is an illusion. So I know companies try to fool you and pretend that your data is safe with them and that they anonymize it. But as the example of Danny Yang and Blockseer, Albert John's mentor, showed, is there some weak link somewhere in the history of what you do on that browser or that phone with that footprint, digital footprint? I think it's an illusion that they don't know if they want to know. My book is subtitled Post-Privacy Economy, and that has the assumption that privacy is an illusion. But it is an economy, so we should be clear what we are asking in exchange to the data that we don't really give up, but we give access to. We can't live without creating data. If you just think about what's the first thing you do in the morning, you open your phone. And who knows about it? AIS, of course, or True, to the degree that True actually works. Or Google knows, and so on and so forth. So many parties necessarily know. It's not that they're snooping on you. No, you have to use the service. Geolocation, if you use Google Maps, notoriously wrong in Bangkok. It's surprising to me just how it consistently underestimates the time it goes through. I really don't understand how they don't empirically get the data right. But if you want Google Maps, the navigator, to tell you where you want to go, guess what? You need to share. This is where I want to go, and you need to share where you are. Otherwise, no hope to get that message to the left at the next intersection. So I think one of the messages I have here is it's an illusion that you can anonymize data. The question is, ladies and gentlemen, what do we do as a society if we find behavior hypocrisy? How should we react if people claim things which are not true? If people don't want to show their tax returns, for instance?
Yeah, one thing to add, I think one very exciting or very scary, depending on who you ask, is so we not only collect data about a person, like photo on Facebook, but we can actually build a generative model now from all those data, right? We can not only so by reading your text, I can create a generative model that writes as if it was you. If I have a lot of photos, I can create a 3D model that looks just like you, or even there's one experiment that we do. I try to create a fake bobbing head, and my advisor cannot tell apart which one is real by just studying from videos of that person. So right now, one exciting or scary is that you can actually build a generative model from all the data that you collect, and that that has a lot of implications too. If again being misused.
So I invite you to imagine that you will not know anymore whether this really is me or whether that's just a video of me. On that note, thank you all. Thank you for lending me your time, your brains, helping me out here to discuss identity and trust. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Ed.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia.
Thank you. Thank you.